so as we delve into the subject of narcissism, we have 3 objectives for today's seminar. The first objective is to understand that narcissism or narcissistic personality disorders, they are on a continuum or a spectrum. So we'll talk about the continuum that they fall on. And the reason why we want to know about the continuum or the spectrum is to really understand individuals and learn to stop pathologizing individuals who actually struggle with the personality disorder. And we also want to increase our level of empathy when working with individuals who are in the workplace or in any environment for that matter. The second learning objective is to understand both the benefits as well as the risk. So a lot of times when we think about narcissism and we think about the character traits or the personality disorder, we talk about the negatives, right? How it will negatively impact your business, but we're also going to talk about some of the benefits of how individuals who actually have this type of personality disorder or character style can benefit your organizations. Then we will analyze and discuss the Christian response. How do we respond to persons that we work for or that we work alongside with that actually present with a narcissistic personality trait? So I just want to stop one quick second here because I forgot to do something. I just have to get a selfie, okay? Let me tell you, I know that I'm going to do such a great job here. I do not want to miss out on the opportunity of getting this selfie, and I want to make sure that you are all included. So if you can, yes, please. Well, please sit right there. But I'm going to really focus on Pastor Josh because I think I'll get more likes if they see you in the selfie. So let me just make sure. Okay, right. Everybody say cheese. Okay. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. But I need to do one other thing. Pastor Josh, I know I gave you something a little earlier, and I just want to make sure that you read that and you're in agreement too. Does Pastor Josh have issues with paying people on time? Because I really need to make sure that I get paid. I don't leave my office without at least getting paid $20,000. So I want to make sure that I am paid when I leave here today, because if I don't, Pastor Josh, there may be some legal ramifications. So I just want to make sure that I am paid. Okay, so. Okay, Terry, I will see you after the conference. So let me just tell you a little bit about who I am, because I don't really know anyone here. So my name is Dr. Tiffany Gilmore, and I am a licensed social worker in the state of New Jersey. I have worked with individuals with different type of personality disorders, as well I've worked with children, adults. I have even worked with individuals who struggle within their relationships, and I provide relationship therapy as well as sex therapy, actually helping individuals understand the interconnection between faith and sexual health. But let me just tell you, with all that I've ever done, I know I am a when I say great therapist, there is no one better than me. I really just dig right into what I do. But enough about me. But wait. I think it's important that you know. So I earned my bachelor's degree at Geneva College, and then I went on to earn my clinical social work degree from Bryn Mawr College. And I'm sure you're all aware of Bryn Mawr College and what that entails. To get into Bryn Mawr College, you have to be really, really smart and really, really elite. So it is a part of the Seven Sisters, and it's interconnected with the Ivy League of University of Princeton. You all know University of Princeton, right? I did get accepted there. However, can you believe that the admissions director lost my application? They lost my application. What were they thinking? But you know what? It was their loss anyway. But I did go on and I earned a second master's degree at Palmer Theological Seminary. And Princeton, they wanted me, but I said no, I wasn't going to go there. But my doctorate's degree is from Eastern University in marriage and family therapy. And I'm very, very pleased about what I have accomplished. So if you can just turn your attention this way to this handsome man over here, Pastor Chris Gilmore. You know, we've been married for over 20 years. We have an adult daughter who, oh my goodness, she is just the best. She's also a therapist. And we have an adult son who is working on his college degree. So, is that it? Okay. He's looking at me. I think that's enough about me. Okay, everyone. When we think about narcissistic personality disorders, this is what we typically think about when we talk about an overt sense of narcissism, an overt sense of being concerned about who you are and being concerned about how other people view you. It is very blatant, it is very flamboyant, where people can see and notice, I want all of the attention put on me. There's something about me where when I connect myself to others who I believe hold any type of power, I am satisfying a longing or a need within inside myself. So how many people here actually know anything about narcissistic personality? If you do, raise your hand. Okay, good. So some of the characteristics I displayed was, number one, a grandiosity attitude of superiority, right? So it wasn't good enough for me to take a picture with everyone. However, I'm hyper-focused on who I read in the room is superior. A sense of grandiosity. A sense of charisma, right? Very vocal, very good at speaking, very good at actually getting people to listen or to focus on what I'm saying, even if you don't like it. Everyone was very focused. How about manipulation? A type of social influence that aims to change the behavior or perceptions of others through abusive tactics, through deceptive tactics, or underhanded tactics. I'm not expecting any payment, but what did I tell Apostle Josh about the bill? That, hey, if I'm not going to get paid, legal ramifications, right? That's a sense of narcissistic abuse or manipulation, right? That's a sense of deceptiveness or underhandedness. What did I do when I talked about the admissions director that lost my application? I shifted the blame. Individuals with narcissistic personality traits or narcissistic personality disorder, it is very difficult for them to take responsibility for anything that goes wrong within their lives. Okay? So when we think about narcissism, according to the statistics acquired from a research study done at the Cleveland Clinic, there are only 6.2% of individuals who are actually diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. Many mental health care professionals, they agree that the reason why the number is so low is because individuals who have this personality disorder do not see or think that there is anything wrong with them, right? So the only way that they come into therapy is coming into therapy to work on issues outside of themselves. So I come into therapy because I want to work on issues with my partner. My partner is not meeting expectations. Or sometimes people come into therapy because their supervisors are giving them a hard time on the job. And it's always the supervisors, the employer's fault. Or they're mandated to come to therapy because they've done something illegal or something that they should not have done. So this is how the diagnosis usually comes about. To actually be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, you have to meet 5 out of 9 criteria that are in the DSM, and we use the DSM-5 now, which is the diagnostic handbook for mental health professionals. So some of the DSM criteria looks at significant impairment in one's personality functioning, in their self-functioning, which is associated to their identity, as well as their self-direction. So in regards to their identity, they have an excessive or hyper-focused reference to others for self-definition. If you notice, during the skit, I was very concerned about different people in a room and how I was going to relate or to connect. It's important in your businesses that you're aware of the individuals who are trying to connect for their own self-gratification, not necessarily to move the business forward, but what can they get out of the business. The second one is self-direction. So goal setting is based on gaining approval from others. So of course, we all have goals that we want to obtain in life. We all focus on specific goals. But what is the reasoning behind the goals? Most of the accomplishments that I named, I really do have those degrees. However, the reason why I've obtained those degrees is for the glory of God, to be able to work with God's created, to be able to help individuals move from where they are into a healthier, happier relationship with God and with others. People with narcissistic personality disorders or traits, their goal is simply to be recognized and to be seen. To be recognized and to be seen. Another one of the impairments in interpersonal functioning is the lack of empathy. Individuals have an impaired ability to recognize or identify with their feelings and needs of others. So it's hard for them to be emotionally attuned or emotionally connected. They're excessively attuned to the reactions when they're negative towards them, but they don't pay attention to how their actions or behaviors affect other people outside themselves. They also struggle with intimacy. So relationships are largely superficial. The relationship dynamics are, well, what can you do for me? Think about relationships that are a means to an end. If we have a dispute with a specific business, we may contact one of the customer service representatives. And when we contact this customer service representative, the only reason why we're talking to that person is because we're trying to get an issue resolved, right? This is how individuals who have a narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic traits, they function in life. So although I am your employer, I'm not going to engage you as if you are someone that I value and someone that I am concerned with, but you are only a means to an end. If you're an employee, I'm only here as a means to an end to collect the paycheck. I'm not concerned about anyone else in the environment. I'm not concerned about how I interact with anyone in the organization. There are the pathological personality traits, which we talked about, the grandiosity and the attention seeking. So with the grandiosity, this is feelings of entitlement. They can be either overt or covert. There's a self-centeredness attached. With the attention seeking, it is very excessive when we're talking about the overt, but it's less noticeable in individuals who function in a covert narcissistic personality style, and we'll talk about that a little later. So also in regards to the impairment, we also look at how long someone has been functioning this way, and we need to actually rule out that the personality functioning is not contributed to other circumstances, like substance use, like trauma to the head, or social or cultural experiences. So let's think about how the term narcissism came about. The neurologist Sigmund Freud actually borrowed this term from the Greek myth of Narcissus. And in that myth, this Greek myth of Narcissus, he was walking through the wilderness and he stumbled upon a body of water. And when he looked into the body of water, he saw his own reflection. And he became so obsessed with how he looked. He fell in love with his image and his self-reflection. And because it could not turn into an actual person, it led to his own demise. And he died there in the wilderness. And while within our society, we tend to always focus on the negative, Sigmund Freud actually looked at both the normal and the pathological elements of narcissism. More modern day therapists or mental health professionals, they actually maintain that individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, their personalities are framed around maintaining their self-esteem from others, not from anything that they do. Their identity is really lost. We understand that our identity should be what? In Christ, right? Our identity should really be in Christ. However, these individuals, they struggle with identity issues. But it's important to know that mental health professionals recognize that we all have these vulnerabilities, these narcissistic vulnerabilities. Williams points out that although all of us have vulnerabilities in our sense of who we are and how valuable we feel, we essentially try to run our lives in a way that makes us feel good. So our egos are enhanced by approval, and our egos are also injured from disapproval from significant others. If I use my own vulnerabilities, right, thinking about my own vulnerabilities, if I talking today, and me and my husband, we have a 45 to an hour ride home, I'm going to get in the car, and at some point, we're going to talk about what I said, what I did, and depending on his response to me, I can either feel good about myself, or if he says, oh, you shouldn't have said that, maybe you shouldn't have did that, I am going to reevaluate what I did today, right? That's a part of this normalized narcissistic trait. So when thinking about interactions with others, we all want to recognize that we all are susceptible to this type of vulnerability. Just think about employees or employers. So employees, they naturally pride themselves on what? Getting good employee reviews. It's tied directly to some type of monetary gain. And if an employee does not receive a good employee review, what happens? It impacts their emotional state, and it also impacts how they function on the job, right? Getting that sense of approval from others. For employers, we recognize that they naturally pride themselves on customer reviews. Those who we work with, those who utilize our services. So thinking about if you get a bad customer review, it's going to impact how you feel about your business, how you feel about yourself at normal limit if there is no narcissistic characteristic style associated with it. However, for someone with a narcissistic personality style or disorder, it can literally crush them when they receive negative feedback because they truly need to feel as though they are superior. So, as we think about narcissism within the workplace, it's important to understand that we all have these vulnerabilities, right? We all have to recognize that they come in a continuum from normal narcissistic traits. It moves on to narcissistic concerns, then narcissistic personality structure, all the way up to pathological narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder, which is the most extreme functioning. So thinking about how difficult it is to actually work with or to even engage, have a relationship with someone who has this type of characteristic style, personality style, or disorder, we recognize that we have to have an increased sense of empathy. Empathy is so important. So to understand another person's experience, we need to be concerned with how and why people behave the way that they do. What makes a person behave this way? What makes a person capable of harming someone else by their behaviors, by their actions? So, although it's not usually diagnosed until early adulthood, researchers contend that narcissistic personality disorder has a correlation to adverse childhood experiences, and it may also have some biological components. So this is when we think about nature versus nurture, right? The way you were raised has a large impact on your personality or character style, as well as some biological components. So Kernberg suggests individuals with narcissistic personality disorders may have been raised by cold, indifferent, or hostile parents, which causes a narcissistic defense against dependence. So if I have been unable to depend on my primary caregivers, then I see those outside of me as being what? Unreliable and undependable. So now I have to make sure that when I'm functioning, I exude the persona that people can rely on me and they can depend on me. But it's only a persona. It never really happens. Now, the psychologist Coholt actually contends that a child raised by narcissistic parents have a higher likelihood of developing narcissistic personality disorder. One of the reasons is because the parents have tended to use the child for their own narcissistic mirroring. So because they need to feel good about themselves, they actually utilize their child. If you notice, I started talking about my children and their accomplishments because they're directly connected to me. So in families like this, if the parents have this disorder, they're going to raise their children with this false sense of entitlement. You are great regardless of what you do. I don't care what it is. I don't care if the school contacts me. You did nothing wrong. So I am literally going to go to bat for you every single time, right? They typically enforce no rules for their children and tell their children, basically, you're above any rules. So you don't have to live by the standards of society. Narcissist personality disorder can also develop out of non-mirroring. So if you have parents who are not emotionally available and maybe tell their children, you're never going to be good enough. You're not enough. Then that narcissistic need for mirroring, I need to find someone who is going to tell me how good I am, how wonderful of a job I'm doing. So that is what they seek to acquire. So one of the things to increase empathy for individuals, we need to understand what the internal working model is and the core beliefs of individuals who suffer from narcissistic characteristics or personality disorder. This internal dialogue consists of their view of self and their view of others. When we think about their view of self, there are two distinguished characteristics. The view of self that is a real view of self, which I feel as though I'm unclear about who I am. I feel very shameful. I feel very empty inside. I feel depressed and desperate. I'm always mirror hungry because I'm looking for someone who is better than what I perceive myself to be. And sometimes that reflects in a sense of anger and rage. That's a lonely place when you think about it. Not knowing who you are, not knowing where you truly fit in. So to compensate for that, individuals typically will function in their pseudo-self, this false sense of self. I'm better than everyone in the room. I'm smarter than everyone in the room. I need to get approval from everyone that I come in contact with. Do you know how hard that persona is to try to keep up with? Telling yourself day after day that I have to work harder, that I have to be smarter to keep up with this. So, things that a narcissist may say in business. If number one, whoever has envelope number one, if you can open it up and read it. This wasn't my fault. To a narcissist, nothing is their fault. When things go wrong, their first instinct is to blame someone else. If they forget something, then it's someone else's fault. It might be your fault because you didn't remind me to bring it, right? So they're always blaming someone outside themselves. Number two, can you read yours?
I do most of the work here.
Yes. Individuals with this characteristic style, they want the credit. And while all of us want the credit for the work that we do, The difference is that individuals with this personality style, they will take the credit of others and act as if it is their project, it is their work. Number 3. Just kidding, yes. So they may tell an off-color joke or a condescending joke and follow it up by, oh, I was just kidding. That was a joke, right? After all, anyone who would take a joke seriously is just being oversensitive. So that's a part of that gaslighting, where they want to make sure that they don't take any of the blame on themselves, but they will point it to someone else. Number 4.
You're just not understanding.
Yes, you're just not understanding. So they never acknowledge that their ideas might just be bad. Sometimes we just have bad ideas, right? Sometimes you haven't communicated your idea well enough. Number 5.
I taught you everything you know.
Yes, that overinflated view of their contributions. They believe that their coworkers' success are a direct result of their influence and mentorship. Number 6.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yes, this is a way not to apologize. When you are dealing with individuals who have a narcissistic character style, or especially the personality disorder, you will never receive an apology. Number 7.
I basically carried this place.
Yeah, so a sense of arrogance. Okay? Okay, we're going to skip down just for time's sake. So thinking about benefits and risk within a workplace. Some of the benefits of individuals who have narcissistic personality traits or character style or even personality disorders is that these individuals are driven and they're willing to make personal sacrifices in order to succeed. This is why most often you might see individuals in leadership positions, because they have to have a certain sense about themselves. They also have this charisma that is associated with them that make them good speakers, and they attract followers. So usually if you have that type of personality disorder, you're going to make a good leader to some extent. Also, their character styles have bold and transformative visions, and they can inspire loyalty and dedication. Both loyalty and dedication. They can make tough decisions without being distracted by sadness and guilt or even empathy. So they may be Johnny on the spot to be able to make a tough decision when everyone else is, more or less utilizing their emotional side of the brain. Someone who with this character style may utilize their rational side of the brain. They can see the big picture and predict specific trends. So remember, they're always looking outside themselves, right? How are we going to best accomplish this so that I can look good, essentially, but they're looking at the larger scope of things. And their fear of failure can lead to rigorous assessments of potential risk and reward. So they don't want to fail. So if you have someone on your team with this personality trait, they're not going to want to fail. What are some of the risks? They're emotionally volatile, so that can lead to a variety of dysfunctional behaviors within the workplace. They can exploit the organization in order to attain their own goals. They can become distrustful and paranoid when they sense danger or dissent. And they often make decisions for wrong reasons. So I'm making the decision to help the company, but ultimately I'm going to take my ideas and probably your company with me, right? So understanding the reasoning behind the decisions that they make. So what are some of the recommendations to work with individuals who present with this type of characteristic style or personality disorder? You have to be mindful and be aware. So recognizing the traits. Be mindful of the potential benefits and the risk when recruiting, hiring, and promoting. Consider the impact on the social psychology of the organization as a whole. So what other personality styles are within your organization? This is where you may actually want to bring someone in to do, a personality assessment to see what personalities actually mesh within the organization and which ones will not. You want to create a context in which benefits are maximized and risks are minimized. So if you already know that you have conflicting personality styles within the organization, maybe putting this individual on projects where they have limited interactions with individuals with other personality styles that could be detrimental to the company or organization. You also want to surround people with these type of traits with capable and confident advisors who are willing to disagree while also being sensitive to their internal working model. Then you want to encourage rationality and long-term thinking. You want to monitor the risks that are being made. A lot of times you want to bring in consultants, mental health consultants, if you notice that the risks are outweighing the benefits. And you want to also consult with legal help to see what are your legal recourses when dealing with individuals who may present this way. So what is the Christian response? What do we do as Christians, right? When you are dealing with individuals who are in the workplace that may be very abusive to others, may be abusive to yourself, or even if we feel as though we have some of the higher narcissistic characteristic traits, what do we do with that? I'm going to read from 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5 from the NIV. But mark this, there will be terrible times. In the last days, people will be lovers of themselves. I just lost my scripture. Bear with me. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people. I'm also going to read Matthew 22, verses 36 through 40. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So how do we hold the tension between these two scriptures? How do we hold the tension? We hold the tension by setting firm boundaries around ourselves, setting firm boundaries with others. We also hold the tension by loving our neighbor, seeing what we can do about building bridges instead of building walls, right? Understanding that it is only by God's grace and love that we don't find ourselves in this position of narcissistic personality disorder. Recognizing that it is in Christ that we find our identity and our hope for a better future. So when creating the boundaries, when we think about someone who has experienced abuse, right? When we think about someone who is being verbally tormented in the workplace, it's not that we accept the abuse, right? It's not that we stay there and we accept the abuse. We put boundaries around it, but we still love. Our love for these individuals will not engage in backbiting. It will not engage in gossip. It will not engage in demeaning or further tearing down someone who's already experienced that type of harm. So that's a way that we actually allow ourselves to maneuver through the tension, appropriate boundaries, and loving with the love of Christ. Thank you so much for your attention.